The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Happy Hanukkah, Wolfpack! We're back, and today we take a look at a holiday special episode of the hit horror series R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour. That's right, The Haunting Hour actually did a Hanukkah special for everyone to enjoy, and we're going to take a look at this one for the sake of giving the Jewish celebration some well-deserved publicity this winter. Hey, I've heard of cheap reasons to provide a special review, so just enjoy your Hanukkah gift. For those of you who are curious, no, I personally am not Jewish. I'm a Catholic. We here at Wolf Entertainment would like to apologize for the terribleness of that pun. But putting all joking aside, it is a pleasure to see how well The Haunting Hour did a tale of suspense based on a Jewish fable. Thank goodness the show never did a Kwanzaa special. Wonder how that would have turned out. But back to this episode. This is a two-part story arc based on the legend of the Golem. Now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a golem? No, that's not it. For those of you who want to know more about the Hebrew golem, then please check out my brother Wolf's editorial on that. It's a short video that's pretty quick and to the point on this myth. Otherwise, I'm only going to talk to you about the one that's offered on the show, and not the more well-known fables, since there are way too many different stories to tell you the exact version of the Golem's true origin. But here on the show, we're going to see how well this story makes us dread the giant soldier of stone. Whether or not it succeeds will be determined by us in the end. Was this two-part special a powerful story that rises from the ground, or has its magic failed to stay lit by today? Well, let's stop wasting time and find out. This is my review on the Hanukkah special, The Golem. So, our holiday special opens up with a dying grandma on life support. Great start. You can really feel that Hanukkah spirit. This dying old woman is having a panic attack while we cut to some random guy in the woods running away from something scary before we see a giant monster killing him by flipping over his CGI car. The grandma then dramatically says that it has returned. Finally, my sequel is underway. We then meet our main character, Jeremy, coming inside his grandma's room to comfort her after he overhears her hallucinating and talking in some strange language. The grandma tells him how lucky she is to have him by her side, to indicate that these two are close, which always mean that the loving family member character will die. She begins to tell him that she was having nightmares about World War II. But before she can tell him more, the father interrupts them, telling Jeremy that they should leave Grandma alone to rest in peace. Yes, how dare Jeremy comfort his dying old grandma? Just let her die alone, kid. Clearly he's the jerk. That night, Jeremy begins having nightmares about World War II himself before going downstairs to comfort his jump scare grandma, where she gets to tell him about World War II, making the previous scene with the father interrupting them entirely pointless. Glad we wasted those 5 minutes, right everyone? But anyways, she tells him about the war to end all wars, the dark times of her childhood. We see through some cinematic flashbacks that the grandmother used to live in an innocent farm village in Europe before they came, the Nazis. Just a minor nitpick, the show never refers to these evil soldiers as Nazis. They're only called the soldiers, because I guess the show that casually kills off innocent children thought that kids would be too scared to know that Nazis exist. Stupid censorship. The Nazis came to Grandma's nation to conquer it, massacring all civilians in this fictional village in the process, but a few Jewish survivors remained hidden underground. A mysterious professor leading the survivors taught the grandma how to wield magic to help save the people, while the villagers constructed a defender to save them from these monstrous killers, which was, you guessed it, a stone golem. The grandma used her divine magic to bring the golem to life and keep it under her control, as she commanded it to slaughter the Nazis, which we sadly don't see on screen, but I can imagine that it went something like this. Close enough. I'm a bit confused on why the mysterious professor didn't use magic himself, even though he could teach it to Grandma, but my best guess is that he was too old to fight alone, so he needed to pass his power down to an apprentice. They do imply that the professor didn't survive the war later. Jeremy thinks that she's just crazy, but she begs her grandson to promise that he'll go back to her village for her as a dying request, which he agrees to do. But after expressing her regrets, Grandma Nadia dies as Jeremy cries. Wow, a Haunting Hour episode that opened up with a tragic death. That's a pretty strong start. Let's just hope that this Golem is an awesome villain with a lot of personality to make this episode even better. The next day, a lawyer comes over to the house to discuss Grandma's will, where we learn that Jeremy has inherited his grandma's ashes. He remembers what his grandma said to him before she died, and thinks that the reason she wanted him to go to her old village is because he needs to spread her ashes at her home country, for honor or something. And you'll never guess where Grandma Nadia's home country is. That's right, the Haunting Hour is going to Russia. A surprising choice of location, but as long as there's no French stereotype aliens or cheese puff aliens, I'm good. Unfortunately, the dad actually has common sense and quite correctly points out that this all sounds too crazy to be real and doesn't think that it's a good idea to randomly send his son to Russia while he and Jeremy's mom are too busy, because apparently the parents work jobs that don't allow you to take time off after a family member passes away. So sadly, this means Jeremy might not be going to Russia, even though we all know he'll be going eventually, since the show needs an adventure. Later that night, we get a pretty cool dream sequence straight out of Silent Hill, where Jeremy hears his dead grandma calling out to him, where he encounters her in this ominous empty field. His grandma tells him that he must go to the Dagobah system, Russia, so he can spread her ashes before it's too late. Okay, that's a pretty cool moment, since it shows us how Nadia's tragic passing left a big impact on our hero, which really makes up for how little every other family member seems to feel about her death. Seriously, the other members of the family seem like they don't give a care about her death at all. They act like Nadia's death was just a minor problem, while our hero is emotionally broken by it more than they were. That's kind of messed up. No wonder Jeremy was Grandma's favorite. That morning, he begs his parents to allow him to visit Russia, but they still say no, arguing that it's not safe. However, Jeremy's older sister, Bonnie, comes in, played by the same actress who played Allie from the Pumpkinheads. The good one. Yep, Allie's actress is back, and is once again playing the responsible older sibling to the kid hero. She convinces the parents to allow her to take her little brother to Russia, where she'll watch over him to keep him out of danger while they spread Grandma Nadia's ashes. While reluctant at first, the parents agree and set their trip into motion, since they trust Bonnie to be safe. Right, because the last trip to a supernatural area worked out so well for this girl. We cut to Russia, where the kids arrive, and are apparently driving an American car in Europe, where they conveniently missed the wrecked truck the monster destroyed earlier. Why are kids in this show so unobservant? They try looking at their map for directions, but then the episode does the cliched jump scare moment where a crazy guy screams at them to run away or else they'll die. Don't you just hate those kinds of characters who try to warn people to leave from a dangerous zone while they still can, but do it in the most insane way that it makes them look evil and accidentally leading to the main characters heading into danger anyway because the person who tried to warn them was so stupid? Please, stop making horror stories where the only smart characters tries to save people in the most psychotic way, because it's always used as a cheap jump scare moment that never helps. Who goes up to people they want to help screaming, "You're gonna get dead"? So, big shock, the kids drive away in fear, but just a few seconds later, the monster comes and kills this guy. Do any of you love the CGI used for the Golem? Well, guess what? It doesn't matter, because this is the only time CGI is used for the creature in the entire story, which feels pretty pointless. Almost as pointless as this unnamed guy's death. We cut to this hotel/tavern where the kids arrive to stay for the night, but coincidence of all coincidences, we also see the Russian villagers, led by their mayor, Ivan, are holding a meeting together discussing a strange monster that has been killing random people out in the woods. Why, they even brought in the corpse of one of the farmers as proof that no ordinary animal or human being could kill such a person in a gruesome way. Gotta love this show, right? This is one of the rare times where a corpse was actually found by the civilians trying to escape from the monster. Nothing but family-friendly death featured for your kids. After showing off the dead body for everyone, we then see the crowd getting pissed off at this old man.
Oh, shut up, or I'll read you all a creepypasta! Oh, that's what you all wanted, was it? Well then, maybe you're all the ones who are completely useless now! Well, that's right, Sen. Thank you and good night.
Actually, this old man is a guy named Luca, one of the original creators of the Golem, who is being accused of resurrecting the monster and turning it against the innocent Russian villagers. Luca is played by famous voice actor Gary Chalk, the voice of many Transformers characters, and Prince Rutherford from My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
Well, that's just prime.
Geez, another MLP voice actor is on the show? What's next? Half the cast from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series? Just as things get cool, with these Russians remembering the dark side of the war, things quickly take a turn for the stupid when the kids come downstairs to eat, where, get this, Luca accidentally mistakes the sister Bonnie for her grandmother Nadia, since she looks just like her, and like total morons, all the Russian villagers believe this, and accuse Bonnie of being a witch who brought the Golem here to kill them. Okay, where do I begin? How about with the blatantly obvious problem? The Russians actually believe that this girl they've never met before is not only a child who saved them back in World War II, but is also a witch who summoned the Golem to kill them. How stupid are these people? To be fair, most of the civilians are aware that magic exists because the grandma used it to save them back in the war, and apparently there are Russian professors who teach kids how to master the dark arts, so I can kind of understand this, but it doesn't make the witch hunt themes any less out there. I mean, really, Haunting Hour? You actually had writers script that the Russian farmers still believe in witchcraft in the modern day. At least have them encounter the Golem firsthand before they start pointing fingers at everyone. So the kids point out the obvious truth that Bonnie isn't their grandma Nadia, but the Russians place the murder on them since they are still related to the witch who created the Golem. Yeah, you know, that witch who saved them from the Nazis. Apparently the writers of this episode think that the Russians don't have honor and still believe in witch hunts. But don't worry, the story does get slightly better soon. While the Russians are accusing the kids for all their problems, they run away, but we close out part 1 with a shot of a T-Rex-sized golem marching through the forest to find our heroes and killing everything in his path. I guess he missed them at the airport. So part 2 opens up with the kids packing up to leave this crazy Russian village immediately. But old man Luca comes in, apologizing for mistaking Bonnie for Nadia, claiming that he thought it was his old friend using some kind of spell that prevents her from aging. To the episode's credit, it is the same actress playing Bonnie who played Grandma Nadia in the World War II flashbacks, so that is pretty clever. It just doesn't justify how dumb it is that Luca just assumed that Bonnie was Nadia at first glance. He tells the kids that he knew Grandma Nadia back in their childhood, and that he was one of the original creators of the Golem, where we get another cinematic flashback showing kid Luca witnessing Nadia casting the spell that brought the Golem to life. He also informs that, in her youth, Nadia was an all-powerful spellcaster who protected the Russians during the war, and that she taught him a little magic to make sure that the Golem would be shut down after its job was complete. Amazing. These two kids were the only ones with total control over this golem and saved the entire country of Russia from Nazis. Could you imagine how much power a child would have with a golem?
Now, there's something I've wanted to do for a long time. Can't you read my writing? I didn't say kick Homer's walls.
What's going on? Oh!
That's better.
So yeah, Luca knows how the golem operates, and we get some recycled scenes of the monster offing Nazis to hammer in how unstoppable the villain is. You guys really couldn't film more battle scenes with the monster? Gary Chalk goes on, saying that after the war ended, they buried the golem underground, with the grandma putting a sleep spell on it to keep it dormant forever. But after she died, the spell was broken, causing the golem to rise up once more and go on a rampage. Jeremy realizes that the real reason his grandmother wanted him to come to Russia was because she needed him to shut down the golem for good in order to atone for her mistake of not destroying it back then. But unfortunately, he has no clue how to stop the 10-foot giant soldier of stone on his own. Bonnie doesn't believe in any of this, and just when she says this is all BS, the golem breaks in.
Oh yeah! Here comes Kool-Aid! Here comes Kool-Aid! I'm gonna save the day!
But don't worry, Jeremy whacks at him with his backpack, which causes the giant rock monster to run away. Yes, really. A kid smacking the villain with his backpack is enough to intimidate a giant rock monster.
It was a big rock.
So after scaring away the rock man, Luca disappears, while Bonnie points out that it's too dangerous for them to stay in Russia, but Jeremy begs his older sister to help him finish Grandma's dying wish by spreading her ashes before they leave, which she reluctantly agrees to do. Well, it's not like he's the first Jeremy to take on a golem. The next morning, the kids walk around the village to find the perfect place to dump Grandma's ashes, but somebody is watching them from afar. It turns out to be the village leader, Ivan, and his gang, who abduct Bonnie while Jeremy gets away. But he won't get too far. Quick, activate the vomit shield. Yeah, the stuff we review is so screwed up. Fortunately, Jeremy is able to dodge those crazy Russians by hiding in a small farm, where we actually get a quiet moment with our hero feeling scared and hoping that he can save his grandma's good name. Man, that's actually pretty sad. Not that I'm complaining about these deep emotional moments, but for an episode about the golem, there sure is a lot more focus on the kids. I mean, the golem has only faced our heroes once for a few seconds, while Jeremy's inner turmoil seems to be the real conflict in the story. Not a bad idea, but I really wish the monster got to do more. We then see the Russians holding Bonnie captive, where the villagers act evil and stuff, because even the Haunting Hour loves using the Russians are scary cliché. Ivan tells everyone that they can break the curse of the golem by sacrificing Bonnie in some kind of ancient Russian ritual, because the writers couldn't get away with saying Satanism on the show, and the Russians believe that her death will break the golem's life spell. Bonnie tells them that she's not her grandma Nadia, but Ivan still thinks that the sacrifice will work since they'd be killing a relative of a witch, and he somehow thinks that Bonnie inherited her ancestors' magic, so by that logic, the golem will count the ritual. Wait, what? What logic is that? Just because Bonnie is related to a magic wielder means she somehow genetically inherited spellcraft that the grandma learned from the teachings of a professor? And that by killing Bonnie, that will somehow destroy the golem's life spell, even though the monster was brought back to life after the grandma herself died. How does this sacrifice even work?
We do this every year, Pops, and every year we stay alive. Therefore, this must be why we're alive.
So, yeah, Ivan and the Russians are bonkers now, and they all get out their carving knives to prepare for the ritual, telling Bonnie that she'll die by midnight. Meanwhile, Jeremy thinks it's all clear and heads out, where he finds golem footprints, but before he can go out hunting golems, he hides from the Russians again, but Gary Chalk jump scares him, only to reveal that he's an ally by tricking the villagers into looking for the kid in the opposite direction. Luca finally toughens up and tells Jeremy that he wants to help him save the day, revealing that the Russians plan to execute his sister by midnight if the golem is not stopped. The two compare notes before Jeremy remembers those strange words his grandma was saying on her deathbed, making him realize that she was saying the incantation to control the golem, but in order to stop the monster, the duo must first head into the dark forest. So the two begin wandering around the scary woods all night, most likely passing by Griselda's body and a magic leprechaun, but Luca begins to grow tired after endless hours of wasted time, much like the people who saw Pouf de Fromage. However, Jeremy encourages him to go on, since it's almost midnight, leaving them with little time to save his sister. But wouldn't you know, they find the golem in all his badly designed glory, where it smacks Gary Chalk for starring in the magic gift of the magic snowman.
That's the way, I like it.
Before the monster can finish him, Jeremy saves the day when he discovers that his grandma's ashes inside his bag had the power to remotely control the golem the entire time, where the monster obeys our hero's every command. Back at the tavern, we see midnight has arrived, where Ivan does his weird ritual aerobics to prepare for his kill, but suddenly the door flings open. It's nothing. Kill her. No, it turns out that the golem bursts in, despite missing his cue earlier, and he one-punches Ivan, which amazingly doesn't kill him. And as you are all probably thinking, yes, the golem does have an incredibly stupid design, and it looks even worse in the light. We'll get to his awful appearance soon, but let's wrap this up. Jeremy comes in too, revealing that he controls the golem through his grandma's ashes, where we get quite a satisfying scene with our hero calling out the Russians on being ungrateful morons for attempting to kill his sister and reminding them that the golem was once their protector, yet they accuse the grandma for being evil after all she did for them. Yeah, you all better look ashamed. It's a pretty bad sign when a little American boy had to teach the Russians a lesson about honor. Despite their hostility, Jeremy forgives them because this Hanukkah special remembered that it needed to deliver a heartwarming lesson in the last few minutes. I mean, they only tried to butcher your sister with satanic daggers. I'd forgive anyone for that too. So after everyone calms down, we get an honestly sad scene where Jeremy finally accepts that his grandma is gone. He overcomes his inner struggle, and he blows magic fairy dust that kills the golem. So, Russia is peaceful once more, until the next political conflict ruins everything. The golem is destroyed, and the family reunites happily together. Luca delivers the final line of the story where he tells Jeremy that he'll always have his grandmother's spirit within his own soul, as the episode closes out with a zoom on the dead Golem, because I guess the episode wants us to feel sorry for him. The end. And that was the Haunting Hour's take on the Golem. How does it hold up? Well, it was an okay episode. Yeah, I know I've described a few episodes like this before, but that's sadly all I can say. It's an okay episode. It's not awful, but it's not the Haunting Hour at its finest either. Let's start with the good stuff. The two-parter is less of a scary story and more of an emotional story with a giant monster in it as a side character. The Golem is mostly about Jeremy coming to grips with the idea that his grandma is dead and accepting that. He takes up responsibility to atone for his grandmother by fixing her mistakes, shutting down her creation for good, and clearing her good name among her home country. It's a pretty good tale, but the story wants the audience to be more interested in Jeremy's trials over the actual monster. They do make you care about his relationship with the grandmother a lot, and unlike most protagonists, he actually had a few allies with him to help his journey. The sister was alright, since we know the actress has been in some of the best episodes before, but she really didn't stand out as a unique character on her own. Not too bad, not annoying, but she's kind of just there. Gary Chalk, of course, did a decent job as Luca, but when you really think about it, this role could have had anyone play it. He didn't exactly have a major importance other than being an assist for Jeremy. I was kind of surprised that they didn't have a twist where it turned out Luca was their grandfather, since he seemed real close to Nadia in the flashbacks. Wouldn't that have given him a greater motivation for helping the kids? I have some mixed feelings on Ivan and the Russian villagers because it's a little hard to believe that modern-day Russians would just jump on board with witch hunting, even for a farm village, but at least they didn't turn them into racial stereotypes since we had Luca as the heroic Russian character. As an emotional tale, it succeeds, but as a horror tale, I think it's pretty weak in that department. Let's talk about the worst thing of this episode, the Golem. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I really didn't like the Golem's costume. This costume design is so dumb and cheap looking, even by the Haunting Hour standards. I can't believe that the same people who made Big Yellow and the Dreamcatcher would make something this goofy. Couldn't they have made the Golem look like Clayface or something actually scary? They didn't even give him a face, just the eye holes for the guy inside the costume to see. Aren't stone statues scarier when they look like they're actually alive and have deformed faces? Come on, this looks like the staff just took Big Yellow's old costume and covered boxes over it, then just went, boom, instant Golem. Why does he look like a box monster?
Don't you talk about my boxes. I like boxes.
You get my point. The Golem's costume is way too silly to be afraid of. He's really not scary. I mean, I've seen Power Rangers villains more horrifying than this guy. To the show's credit, they do intentionally keep the Golem hidden off screen for most of the episode so we don't see his full appearance. But all that fear he racked up just goes out the window once we see him in full view. Plus, I feel like the Golem is not a very interesting villain. Please, tell me I'm not the only one who thinks this. The Golem is not a complex villain who deserved a two-part story arc. The show's writers deliberately created a monster who had zero depth, no personality, no dialogue, and no motivation to entertain us for a two-part story. Out of all the amazing monsters this show has given us, this was the one that was meant to amuse us for an hour-long story? The Golem is not a deep, horrific monster with an evil plan. He's a weapon. He's just a mindless drone that's going around killing people without any rhyme or reason, and the main conflict is that the heroes need to shut him down. It would have been nice to see if the Golem had moments where it was given elements of humanity, but they never do. How cool would it have been if Jeremy had a hard time killing the Golem if he saw it doing something that only his grandma would do, like to indicate the grandma's spirit is somewhere inside there? That could have given the Golem so much character depth. The idea that the Golem was more than the weapon he was designed for is full of so much story potential. But nope, he's just a mindless drone that only knows how to kill things, and the heroes just need to turn him off. Pretty underwhelming for a two-part story arc, especially when there are so many better episodes that would have thrived from getting more screen time. Yet just because the monster has an awful costume design and no depth as a character doesn't mean he isn't a threat. They do have the Golem killing people, so we do know that he needs to be stopped. I just wish the show went further with him. Not an outright terrible monster, but just not that complex or memorable. The only other problem I have is the pacing. This episode can get really boring, especially if you don't like the main characters or our main villain. This episode really takes its time building up the atmosphere and the monster's presence, but maybe a little too long. This two-parter is not too bad, but it needed some more colorful points and personality to leave a bigger impression on us. It's cutting it really close, but I give the Haunting Hours Hanukkah special a gold skull. It's not the greatest episode ever, but it is worth checking out at least once. The worst parts of this story are the badly designed villain and the slow moments that get a little too boring, which is a small problem I had with Toy Train. However, much like Toy Train, it does have a very interesting, mature, emotional tale about learning to accept death underneath a bizarre tale of suspense. I'd only recommend this two-parter if you wanted to see an emotional story for the holidays. Otherwise, it's not very scary. It's a good episode, but I can't see anyone putting this on their top 10 favorite episodes of all times list. The Golem is a serious story about learning to let go of our dark pasts by atoning for our sins. The monster represents our past coming back to get us, and causing problems for others until we can face them ourselves. The Golem is a little rocky in some areas, but the magic of the Haunting Hours' gripping storytelling is underneath its rough surface. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I wish our Jewish viewers a happy Hanukkah, and our other viewers happy holidays.